Industrial silicone injection. On February 6, 2011, a 20-year-old student from London checked into a Hampton Inn near Philadelphia International Airport. She wasn't there for sightseeing. Claudia had traveled over 3,000 miles for a black market cosmetic procedure. She was an aspiring model and dancer who believed a curvier figure would help her career in music videos. In a standard hotel room far from any medical facility, Claudia met with Page Victoria Winslow, a woman who called herself the Black Madam and claimed expertise in cosmetic procedures. Winslow was neither licensed nor trained. The procedure cost Claudia $1,800, a fraction of what legitimate surgery would have cost. This was Claudia's second visit. She'd had the same procedure months earlier without incident. The procedure took place on February 7th. Winslow prepared industrial-grade silicone, a substance never meant for human implantation. Using syringes, she injected the liquid directly into Claudia's buttocks. The material was the type used in machinery lubricants, not medical-grade silicone. Winslow sealed the injection sites with crazy glue. Within an hour after the procedure, Claudia began experiencing chest pains and struggled to breathe. The industrial silicone had entered her bloodstream through damaged blood vessels at the injection sites. Silicone traveled through her circulatory system, reaching her lungs, brain, and liver. Winslow left the hotel, telling Claudia's friend to call an ambulance if she didn't improve. 3 hours after the procedure, around 4:30 p.m., emergency services rushed Claudia to Mercy Fitzgerald Hospital. Doctors discovered that silicone had caused a massive pulmonary embolism, blocking the blood vessels in her lungs. Doctors worked to save her life. They intubated her, administered blood thinners, and attempted to clear the blockages. But the silicone couldn't be removed. Her condition continued to deteriorate despite maximum medical intervention. At 1:32 a.m. on February 8th, approximately 12 hours after receiving the injections, Claudia Aderotimi died. Medical examiner Dr. Frederick Hellman determined the cause of death was a pulmonary embolism caused by silicone injections, and ruled the manner of death a homicide. The Black Madam was convicted of third-degree murder in March 2015 and sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. Toxic injections. In March 2012, a 31-year-old mother of 3 from Broward County, Florida, died after years of enduring substances that slowly destroyed her body from the inside. Her story began in 2007 when she sought affordable cosmetic enhancements from a woman named O'Neill Ron Morris. Morris, who called herself the Duchess, had no medical training or license. She operated out of various homes, apartments, and hotel rooms, offering buttock enhancements for a fraction of legitimate clinic prices. Shatarka paid approximately $2,000 for treatments between 2007 and 2010, believing she was receiving medical-grade silicone. The procedure involved injecting substances into her buttocks, hips, thighs, and breasts. Morris sealed the injection sites with superglue and cotton balls. Shatarka received approximately 10 injections during this period. Over time, disturbing changes appeared. The areas around the injection sites hardened and became hot to the touch. The flesh turned black. Painful lumps formed beneath the surface. By 2011, Shatarka recognized something was seriously wrong and wrote to Florida Department of Health investigators about her complications. The substances didn't remain localized. Medical evidence showed they migrated through her tissue and bloodstream, eventually accumulating in her organs. By 2011, Shatarka struggled to breathe. She was incarcerated for identity theft when her condition became critical. Prison medical staff transferred her to a hospital in Tallahassee as her respiratory system continued to fail. Each breath became more labored. On March 17, 2012, after suffering for 18 months according to her mother's testimony, Shatarka Newby died from acute and chronic respiratory failure. The medical examiner determined the cause was massive systemic silicone migration from the cosmetic injections. After Shatarka's death, at least 30 other women came forward claiming they had also been disfigured by Morris's procedures. One victim nearly died from complications and lost both hands and feet to amputation following a staph infection. O'Neill Ron Morris was charged with manslaughter. In March 2017, she pled no contest and was sentenced to 10 years in prison plus 5 years probation. Post-Operative Collapse. On November 9, 2007, the 58-year-old mother of music superstar Kanye West entered a Los Angeles surgical center for what she believed would be a routine cosmetic procedure. As a former university professor with a doctoral degree, Donda had approached the decision carefully, or so she thought. She had consulted with Dr. Jan Adams, a surgeon who had appeared on television shows and seemed to have legitimate credentials. The surgery planned was extensive. 5.5 hours under anesthesia for a combination of liposuction, tummy tuck, and breast reduction. What Donda didn't know was that another surgeon had previously declined to operate on her after discovering she had a pre-existing heart condition. Medical records indicated she had coronary artery disease with 50 to 70% blockages in 2 arteries, factors that put her at high risk for surgical complications. The procedures themselves showed no evidence of surgical error. After 5.5 hours on the operating table, Donda was sent home to recover the same day, a decision that would later be heavily criticized by medical experts. Standard protocol for such extensive procedures typically requires at least 24 hours of professional monitoring. At her home in the exclusive Playa del Rey neighborhood, Donda was under the care of her nephew Stefan Scoggins, a registered nurse. However, the day after surgery, Scoggins left to attend a baby shower and could not be reached. Donda was left with her assistant and a friend, neither of whom had medical training. That evening, November 10th, Donda's condition deteriorated. She experienced a sore throat and tightening in her chest. These symptoms worsened throughout the day. According to reports, she had taken up to 20 Vicodin pills in less than 24 hours. When her friend and assistant found her unresponsive, cold, and not breathing, they called emergency services at 7:35 p.m. The women struggled to follow the dispatcher's CPR instructions. Paramedics transported her to Centinela Freeman Hospital, arriving around 8 p.m. Doctors attempted resuscitation but were unsuccessful. At approximately 8:30 p.m., Donda West was pronounced dead. The coroner determined she died from coronary artery disease and multiple post-operative factors. Anesthesia Death. On January 7, 2004, the 54-year-old best-selling author of The First Wives Club walked into Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital for what was considered a minor cosmetic procedure. Olivia Goldsmith, born Randy Goldfield, had achieved tremendous success with her novels, many of which had been adapted into films. She decided to undergo surgery to remove loose skin under her chin. The procedure was classified as outpatient surgery, typically completed in under 2 hours, with patients returning home the same day. As Goldsmith underwent anesthesia, complications occurred. Her literary agent later stated that she had a heart attack, and doctors were unable to get oxygen into her system. The medical emergency happened as the anesthesia took effect. Despite the medical team's efforts, Goldsmith fell into a coma. The exact sequence of events during those critical moments has not been publicly detailed, but what is known is that oxygen delivery to her system failed, resulting in brain damage. Because Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital did not have an intensive care unit, emergency personnel transferred Goldsmith to Lenox Hill Hospital, a larger facility better equipped to handle such severe complications. There she remained in a coma, her brain function showing minimal activity. For 8 days, machines maintained her breathing while doctors monitored her condition, hoping for signs of recovery that never came. The case would later draw scrutiny when, just 1 month after Goldsmith's death, a second patient died at Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital during a facelift procedure, also from anesthesia-related complications. New York State officials launched investigations into the facility following both deaths. On January 15, 2004, after showing no improvement in brain function, Olivia Goldsmith's family made the heart-wrenching decision to remove life support. She died at 5 p.m., surrounded by friends. Following her wishes, her organs were donated. She was 54 years old. The tragedy carried bitter irony. Goldsmith had built her literary career writing satirical novels about the pressures women face regarding appearance and aging, yet she died pursuing the very standards of beauty her work had critiqued. The Embolism. On November 26, 2009, the 38-year-old former Miss Argentina entered a clinic in Buenos Aires for a procedure that promised to enhance her already striking appearance. Magnano had won the national beauty pageant in 1994 and had maintained a successful career as a model and event organizer since then. As a mother of twin sons, she had decided to restore the shape of her buttocks through a surgical enhancement. The procedure she chose was a gluteoplasty, more commonly known as buttock augmentation. The surgeon recommended injections of a liquid substance that would add volume and contour. According to reports, the injectable material was PMMA, a synthetic polymer. Friends later said she believed this was a routine procedure with minimal recovery time, perfect for her busy schedule. During the surgery on Thursday, the doctor injected the liquid solution directly into her buttocks. The substance was meant to remain localized in the soft tissue, creating the desired fullness and shape. However, something went critically wrong. According to her close friend Roberto Piazza, the liquid went to her lungs and brain. The next day, Friday, November 27th, Magnano was rushed to a hospital in Buenos Aires with acute respiratory deficiency. Dr. Gonzalo Cortez y Tristan, who received her at the hospital, reported that she arrived with severe breathing problems. Her condition continued to deteriorate over the following days. Doctors identified the cause as a pulmonary embolism. The injected material had traveled through her bloodstream and blocked blood vessels in her lungs. Despite medical intervention, Magnano remained in critical condition for 3 days. The damage to her respiratory system was severe. On November 29, 2009, after 3 days of intensive care, Solange Magnano died from the pulmonary embolism. She was 38 years old, just 3 days before her 39th birthday. She left behind a husband and her 8-year-old twin sons, Bruno and Lautaro. Her death sparked nationwide debate in Argentina about cosmetic surgery regulations and the use of injectable fillers. Questions arose about whether the doctor who performed the procedure was properly certified, highlighting concerns about safety standards in the country's growing cosmetic surgery industry, Liposuction Perforations. On April 10, 2002, the 36-year-old wife of Scottish football star Colin Hendry entered Broughton Park Hospital near Preston, Lancashire. A mother of 4 children, she sought liposuction to restore her figure after childbirth. The procedure was meant to be straightforward, a routine cosmetic enhancement with quick recovery. The surgeon, Dr. Gustaf Anjonsson, performed the operation. What was supposed to be a simple procedure became a 7-year nightmare. During the liposuction, the cannula punctured Denise's bowel and colon 9 separate times. These perforations weren't immediately detected. She was sent home despite the catastrophic injuries. Within hours, Denise collapsed. She was rushed to Royal Preston Hospital, where NHS doctors examining her were, according to Colin Hendry, extremely disgusted and pretty much mad that such damage could have occurred. Medics discovered the cavity created during liposuction was contaminated with the contents of her bowel. The punctures had caused her abdominal wall to die, leaving an open wound requiring constant dressing. Denise spent 2 months in intensive care fighting blood poisoning and septicemia. She survived, but her body was devastated. She required a colostomy bag and faced ongoing medical complications. Over the following years, she underwent a series of operations attempting to repair the damage. Her once active life became dominated by hospital stays and medical procedures. In her diary, she wrote, "I wish I could turn back the clock about 6 years. This is an awful nightmare. I just want my life back together for my kids and Colin's sake." On April 22, 2009, Denise underwent a 16-hour reconstructive operation at Salford Royal Hospital's National Intestinal Failure Unit. Professor Gordon Carlson led the surgical team through the enormously complex procedure. Initially, medics were delighted with the results. But on May 5th, Denise suffered sudden neurological deterioration. A bacteria called Klebsiella, which naturally occurs in the gut, had spread from her stomach to her lungs and then to her brain, causing meningitis. Despite intensive care, her condition worsened. After 11 weeks with Denise in a coma, her family made the heartbreaking decision to switch off life support. On July 10, 2009, Denise Hendry died, age 43. Dr. Anjonsson had voluntarily removed himself from Britain's medical register in 2003, Mexican anesthesia error. On October 30, 2018, the 36-year-old Dallas real estate agent arrived at the Reno Center in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. She had crossed the border with her fiancé Enrique Cruz, seeking affordable cosmetic surgery, a rhinoplasty, and breast implant replacement that would have cost significantly more in the United States. The procedures were originally scheduled for 7 a.m., but were pushed to noon because surgeons flying in from Guadalajara were running late. Laura changed into a hospital gown and completed paperwork while clinic staff prepared. The surgery was expected to take 4 hours, and Cruz was told to return at 4 p.m. When he arrived at 3:30, staff told him they hadn't been able to start the surgery yet because the anesthesia hadn't worked out. What should have been a routine procedure had gone catastrophically wrong. According to doctors at the Mexican hospital where Laura was later transferred, the Reno Center had administered the anesthesia incorrectly, putting it in the wrong place in her spine. Instead of flowing through her body as intended, the anesthetic went straight to her brain. Laura's blood pressure dropped dramatically. Her brain swelled, her kidneys failed, and she went into cardiac arrest. For 8 hours, Laura remained at the Reno Center while staff attempted to address the crisis. Finally, at 9 p.m., Cruz was told Laura needed to be transferred to a hospital. She had fallen into a coma. The clinic initially told him only that the anesthesia wasn't wearing off, and they didn't know why. Only later did they reveal she had suffered cardiac arrest. Laura was placed in a medically induced coma to prevent further brain damage. She spent nearly a week in intensive care at a Mexican hospital, which refused to release her until the family paid the outstanding medical bills. Eventually, her family transferred her by ambulance to El Paso, Texas. American neurologists delivered devastating news. Laura had suffered profound brain injury and would never walk, talk, or eat on her own. After nearly 3 weeks, Laura's family moved her to hospice care. On November 24, 2018, surrounded by family, Laura Avila died. She was 36 years old. The surgery she had traveled to Mexico for never began, the Mega Liposuction. On March 17, 1997, the 47-year-old La Habra resident entered an outpatient surgical center in Irvine. She had scheduled an extensive cosmetic surgery package that combined full-body liposuction with facial procedures, a mini facelift, brow lift, and laser skin resurfacing. Judy Fernandez weighed 150 pounds and had researched her surgeon carefully, even checking with the California Medical Board before proceeding. The operation began that morning at a New U Plastic Surgery Medical Group with Dr. William Earl Mattori Jr., a Yale-educated, Harvard-trained, board-certified plastic surgeon. Under general anesthesia administered by Dr. Robert Ken Hu, Judy remained unconscious as the surgeon inserted a cannula, a hollow metal tube, through small incisions across her body. The device broke up fat cells before suctioning them out. Standard medical guidelines recommended removing no more than 6 pounds of fat during a single procedure, but the surgical team continued well beyond this limit. Hour after hour, the operation continued. Medical board records later showed that the surgeon removed 15 to 20 pounds of fat and fluid during the 10.25-hour procedure. Throughout this extended surgery, Judy's blood pressure remained dangerously low. The surgical team pumped more than 14 liters of lidocaine-laced tumescent fluid into her body, while the anesthesiologist administered nearly 19 liters of intravenous fluids. By the time the procedure ended, Judy weighed 183 pounds, 33 pounds heavier than when she arrived, her body swollen from forehead to toes. Her condition became serious while still at the clinic. The doctors waited 2 hours before finally calling 911. When paramedics arrived, Judy was not breathing and had no pulse. Clear fluid leaked from the liposuction incision sites as she was transported to Irvine Medical Center. Despite emergency interventions, Judy Fernandez died approximately 2.5 hours after paramedics transported her to the hospital. The Orange County coroner determined she died from hemodynamic shock, a combination of massive blood loss and lidocaine toxicity. The Medical Board of California found both physicians grossly negligent and incompetent, ultimately revoking Mattori's license. The case revealed that no blood replacement had been available during the high-risk procedure.